Hi everybody, here's a quick tutorial on how to take and use a magnetic compass bearing when navigating in the hills and mountains. A couple of reasons for using a compass bearing. One of them would be to navigate across featureless terrain such as moorland. Good example being Kinderscout in the Peak District, where you want to get from point A to point B, keep off the footpaths. That's quite a technical way. This is not what I'm going to talk about in this video. In this video, I'm going to talk about perhaps a more common use or a more regular use of a compass, which is when you're in a scenario where you've got footpaths going off in different directions. And for this scenario, I'm going to use Fairfield because I've been in this situation myself. This is one of the high mountains of the Lake District, where you can often be in very thick cloud in mist, where visibility is very poor. You might have walked up on the horseshoe route from Ambleside and you find yourself on the summit, which is a sort of fairly featureless flat plateau, and in thick fog it can all look the same. You've got paths going off in all different directions, climbers paths, what have you, well-used paths, and it's hard to distinguish between, all of them really, and some of them even have piles of stones, cairns that take you off in quite dangerous directions towards these crags. So in this scenario, I'm wanting this path here, this path that's going to take me steeply off the mountain down to Grizedale Hause, where there's a nice wild camping spot. So again, that scenario is I'm disorientated, the clouds come down, I've got paths going off everywhere. This is where the compass comes in. It's where it's essential, to be honest. And the process I'm going to use is first of all, I'm going to put the edge of the compass on the path that I want, which is this one here, taking me down to Grizedale Hause. So E for edge. Stage 2, rotate the dial. I'm going to rotate it in simple terms so that the N correlates with the top of the map. So N for north, top of the map is also north. But I want to be even more accurate. So these grid lines here, they're the blue lines I can see through the glass. I'm going to line them up with the orienting lines on the dial of the compass. Make them parallel. Perfect. I then need to do a stage 3. So I've now got what's called a grid bearing. It's all well and good, but we need to add some variation because unfortunately the world's not perfect. These grid lines point to the grid North Pole, and this needle here, which is a magnetic needle, consistently points to the magnetic North Pole. In an ideal world they'd be in the same place, but they're not. They're in very slightly different places. So we need to add variation, V for variation, of 2 degrees. So we're going from a grid bearing to a magnetic bearing. So the phrase we use is grid to mag add, and I'm adding 2 degrees, which is 1 dash on my compass, which now gives me a bearing of 274 degrees. 274 degrees, and that's now my the bearing I'm going to follow, or it's going to point me in the right direction. The beauty of this needle is, and just a sort of a side step a second, is that it's a constant. It's something we can trust. It's a magnet, so 99.9% of the time it is going to point to the magnetic North Pole. If there's electromagnetic interference, such as pylons and things like that, it sometimes can be moved slightly. There might be air bubbles in the compass, things like that, but 99.9% of the time it's so trustworthy. And all I've done is simply set my compass to take me in a westerly direction in relation to that constant, that north pointing needle. So to recap, I've put the edge on, E for edge, R for rotate, I've added my 2 degrees variation, and then final stage, and this is what I do in real life, I'm not on Fairfield right now obviously, but I would simply hover the needle, which is always going to be the same. I don't need to change it now, the compass is set. Hover the needle over the red orienting arrow, and I then follow this. Now this is my direction of travel arrow, and in the real world, if I was on Fairfield right now, that would be pointing me in the correct direction safely off the mountain down to Grizedale Hause, and I could confidently follow that down to my wild camping spot. So there you go, quick tutorial. I hope that was useful to you, and I'll hopefully do a few more tutorials in future. Cheers.